Congress returns next week with extending the Trump tax cuts a top priority. Joining us now, former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. He's chairman of the Alpha Institute. It's been a while. Kevin, I'll still call you Mr. Speaker if you want, or leader, or I don't know, something. Whatever you want. How about Kevin? We'll go with that for now. Okay. Yeah. I've seen some criticism or some carping from people maybe that aren't Trump fans saying, you know what, he can't pass anything. We're doing all these executive orders. We're doing tariffs. None of these things involve Congress or legislation. It might be a real positive if something like that could happen. Can he get something done on that front, do you think, in the near term?
The answer is yes, but it's wrong that he can't pass anything. Nothing can pass in the House without Trump's support. The things that Trump doesn't support fails. And why would you criticize the president that he's doing a lot of executive orders? He's doing more than others because he's making things happen. Now, the whole question about will they get this tax bill done, the answer is 100% yes. They have no other option. And they just crossed a very big hurdle, especially with the Senate getting the framework, the dollar amount. That actually makes it easier. The question will be what's in the tax bill. So now, just this week, we know that they're not going to raise any rates, not on the higher limit, which I don't understand why Republicans were even talking about that. But now you're going to talk about no tax on tips. That will get done, but it's how you write it. Otherwise, you're going to ask for your salary as a tip. You've got to make sure you write this correctly. Then they have the whole argument, the Democrats are making this false argument about they're going to cut Medicare or Medicaid. That will not be the case. The margins are too tight. The Republicans have already signed a letter. You can't go there. So it's just Jason Smith putting this, the plan together, and I think they've got extra room now than when they first wrote it, so they will get it done.
I guess my question is, we've seen the president and the speaker have to get into whipping mode, and they did pretty well when people said it couldn't be done. As I don't know, you've seen some of the polls, whether the president's popularity in terms of some of the policies, the tariff policies. If that falls, does that embolden some of the Republicans that don't want to spend it, don't want to raise? They're they're hawkish on debt, for example. Some of the Freedom Caucus guys that you have trouble with, or guys and gals that you have trouble with. Does that embolden them if the president, if there's a perceived weakness in his approvals? No, the Freedom Caucus folds every time they walk into the Oval Office. And now it's almost like they whip no so they can go meet with the president. So I have no doubt that this will get through. But will the president have to do all the heavy lifting? Yes, and he has been doing that. Now, the whole conversation about tariffs, the president does need a deal. But you need to put one out so you have a framework for all the other countries. My personal opinion, do an agreement with Japan, India, and the UK. That sets you up very strong with the European Union. It puts you in a stronger position against China. If you watch history about America, us opening the 3 communiques with China on our battle with the Soviet Union, if you take Japan and India, that puts a very good front. And remember, Xi Jinping, he needs a trade deal almost worse than America needs one. Now, they may be able to sustain something longer with their people because of just their people have no freedoms. That's the difference. But I think we would be in a much stronger position. We narrow a couple agreements now. It'll put us stronger in that negotiation going forward. And you're just measuring today. President Trump is stronger in the Republican Party than he has ever been at any given time. I'm not afraid of his ability to whip members into place, and I don't think that changes for the rest of this year.
Can I ask what you just said? You think he's at the strongest position at any given time, and I'm curious what you think the last 3 weeks have done to that position, if anything.
So with Republicans. So.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if there are people in the Republican Party you think that are saying to themselves, this last 3 weeks has not been a great situation.
Well, there's some that could be saying that, but that's not going to take a different action. He still has the greatest strength and the biggest voice, and that's not going to change. Remember, when you're talking about the tax bill, what's the other option of not doing it? you're raising taxes that go directly against the Republican core philosophy. So there's no place for them to go. So the argument about what's inside, and at the end of the day, everybody will realize. The Freedom Caucus, it takes longer for them to realize a position. They'll take everyone they can, and they do like to go to the Oval Office, so lots of times they say no.
Can you just play out, though, the calendar for the rest of this year? So one of the views was the administration wanted to take care of tariffs, I thought, early, in part because they were hoping that they'd be able to point towards ostensibly reoccurring revenue, if you will, from the tariffs, some of that obviously coming from the American public because they'd be paying it indirectly or directly, or however you want to think about it. But there would be money on the table that then you could point to when you're trying to balance the budget and say, well, we want to get rid of taxes on tips and this and that and the other thing. And so getting that done early was important. Now it seems like that is not going to happen early, so maybe it gets reversed, meaning do you think that a budget gets nailed down first and then the tariff piece happens or doesn't happen? You know, I remember Mike Johnson saying he thought he was going to get this whole thing locked down in the month of May. When does this happen? Are we back? Are we going to be in September and October having the same conversation?
No, I think it gets done before that. And the one thing I would say, those who thought tariffs were going to pay for the tax bill, that's when people were looking for pay-fors. That question is gone now after the Senate was able to do the current baseline. So that's no longer a question. But that was a very big argument at the beginning. So that's off the table. So it's not a pressure on doing the tariff agreements before doing tax. Tax will get done.
Yep. Kevin,
it's just the timeline of what you have, how much time you have in the House and the Senate. And remember, Article 1, Section 7, all tax reform starts in the House. So the Ways and Means is better prepared to start now. I think the Senate may take a little longer.
When you said that would be de facto raising taxes and how anathema that is, where the hell did this idea come from that we were actually hearing that there was an undercurrent in the Republican Party for to raise the, go back to 39% or 40% on
That's
the highest rate. Where did that come from? And we had Jason Smith on, the guy you just mentioned. I asked him about it. He wouldn't say no. Kevin Hassett, no one would say no, as if they were in Trump's ear talking about one of the key tenets of 2000 of the original bill was bringing that down to 37. They were going to give that back. Whose idea is that? Do you know?
I have no idea, but let me be very clear. I'll say no. It is a foundation of a philosophy of Republicans of a smaller government that people can keep more of what they earn.
Right, like
no way
tariffs.
Are they going to raise. The one thing I would say, if you want to make the argument, for those who want to make the arguments about the tariffs, then lower the corporate rate. That plays directly in with the tariffs, too. So if something costs more, make the corporate rate go lower. Could you buy that down lower? And who wins in that? All the workers. Remember when we did that before?
So you don't know where it came from?
Checks?
You don't know
I do not know where it came from. I'll tell you that it doesn't come from the core of a Republican belief of the foundation of our party.
Kevin, one thing very quickly, we still have a spending problem in this country. We're still raising about 17% of GDP, but we're still spending beyond that. And it doesn't look like that's going to slow down anytime soon. If you add on the additional givebacks and taxes, we could be in for an even tougher position. I don't see how we come up with the cuts that you need to get to a balanced budget position.
No, and I think the greatest threat to America is our debt. And the problem is there's no real push. Remember, in the debt ceiling, we were able to save more than $2 trillion. And think of the things that we were able to do. Now, I believe in the current political state, how can you make this happen? I would take a page out of what we did after the Soviet Union collapsed, creating the BRAC, the Base Realignment and Closure. I'd created the same type of commission that empowers individuals that they can guarantee to vote on the House and then the Senate with no amendments. I actually tried to get Biden to do this, but he backed away. And when you do something like that, you won't get all the political pressures that something can't mount up, but you get the political pressure to do it together. And it's the number one issue out there, but the problem is in the polls, it never materializes. But you're talking within 8 years that all these trust funds are going to go bankrupt.
All right. Thank you, former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Thanks. Good to have you on. Squawk Fox will be right back.